On a previous video, I showed how we temporarily repair a section of a deteriorated and cracked fuel hose on an Onan generator of our motorhome. It was about 8 inches from the fuel pump and got us going at the time, but the rest of it is very dried and ready to crack any time. See the suggested video on the top right of the screen if you want to watch the troubleshooting and temporary repair we did in that video. Today we'll show how we replace the complete hose length connected from the top of the tank to the generator pump. But first, having to drop the fuel tank by using a transmission jack in which we borrowed. Now let's get started with the tools and parts we used to tackle this job. Transmission jack, heavy-duty 5-ton jack stands, 2 pieces of 4x4s, 3/4 inch socket with 1/2 inch impact gun for the fuel tank strap nuts, small crowbar, 3/8 ratchet set. Depending on the floor surface, we used a piece of 4x4 plywood 3/4 inch thick, a flashlight, heavy-duty scissors, penetrating oil for fuel tank nuts, and see the description on this video for a more complete list of parts and tools I mentioned, including the links. The 75-gallon tank at the rear of the Workhorse Chassis motorhome is easy to get to. Here's the view from the rear passenger side propane tank compartment. Some of the strap nuts can be seen from here, but going around to the driver's side here, generator is on the last compartment, and as we go underneath, the 4 tank straps held by 8 nuts can be seen even better. Then we have the hoses that need to be disconnected. A filler hose, which is the larger one, and the smaller one, which is a breather or vent hose. We disconnect them at the tank here by loosening the worm screw clamps between the inside of the chassis and the tank. Then we can pull them out of the way as we drop the tank. They both go into pipes at certain sections and into the back filler cap at the outside rear of the motorhome here. We also need to take this ground wire off, held by a 1/2 inch nut and bolt. This is the deteriorated inlet fuel line we'll be replacing, in which we temporarily joined a while back. It's a 5/16 inch inside diameter hose. We'll see it even better when we drop the tank. You'll notice there's another line going to the top of the tank as well, which is the generator return line. It was replaced a few years ago, or we will be replacing it now as well. A safety warning is important to be brought up here. You'll notice that the rear leveling jacks are used to jack up the rear of the motorhome. The manufacturer does not advise to do this. These are not made to be used even to change a flat tire. They're strictly for leveling, and this is why we add these 2 heavy-duty 5-ton jack stands under the cross member. It's a good idea to pre-soak the threads with some penetrating oil. We took off the middle 2 straps, so we'll be able to place the transmission jack under the center of the tank with 2 pieces of 4x4s in between. And then we can take down the ones on each end. By the way, the tank is only 1/4 full. I don't suggest doing this job with more than that in it. We got the ground wire out of the way and now using a 1/4 inch ratchet with a 7/16 socket to loosen the 2 worm screw clamps holding the 2 big hoses to the tank. After loosening the clamps, using a small crowbar, slowly pry each hose away from the tank. We need to cut any zip ties to the hoses going to the top of the tank, so they'll have plenty of slack when lowering the tank. Before placing the jack under the tank, we place a 3/4 inch thick 4x4 piece of plywood on the ground. This will make it easy to roll the jack and at the same time protect the stamped concrete. Here you can see the jack and 2 pieces of 4x4 jacked up between the tank and the jack. This is not only to keep it level, but protect the tank from getting scratched and dented. Now we can start taking off the last 2 tank straps. Using a 3/4 inch socket on 1/2 inch impact gun, we started with the back strap here. And then we do the front. We make sure we place them down in order to be able to put them back in the same spot. Also pay attention to the rubber strips that are around each strap. These are very important that are put back to protect the tank from rusting. Now we can slowly lower the tank till we have enough room to disconnect the bad hose. And there it is, the whole top of the tank. And the 5/16 inch inside diameter hose for the generator intake, in which we're changing, is right here. And the return line for the generator is this one here. We first disconnect the worm screw clamps where the temporary repair joint is, and start pulling it through the chassis hole to the top of the tank. Then we loosen the worm screw clamp with the 7/16 socket and pull the hose off the brass fitting. This is how dry this is. It just cracks by bending it. We also decided to unscrew the brass fitting as well. It will be easier to insert the new hose than doing it while it's on the tank. We apply Teflon on the brass fitting thread. Then insert the strap to the new fuel hose we're already cut to length by measuring the old one. And now we can insert the brass fitting we took off the tank and tighten the strap. A quick note, don't use these kind of clamps. The worm screw clamps, they dig into the holes like this. These smooth ones are made for fuel lines. We're ready to screw the brass fitting back with the hose already strapped to it, which is a pain to start the thread because the hose being attached, but it's more of a pain to try to insert the hose into the brass fitting and then strap it. Once it's threaded into the tank fitting, tighten it with a 60mm wrench and you're done. Before raising the tank back up, we route the hose through the opening on the side of the chassis. Then we make sure the rubber strips on the top metal straps are attached to them. They should all be attached like this one. The metal tank should not be touching the metal straps or any other metal except the ground wire we showed earlier, and that we'll be reinstalling soon. We're ready to raise the tank back into the top straps. As we jack it up, we're not only watching the hoses don't get pinched or stuck anywhere, but we're also making sure it's lining up with the straps and it's level. Even though there's only a quarter tank of fuel, it's still about 20 gallons of weight. So having 3 pairs of eyes should be safe as we raise it. Once we get it lined up and the tank is touching the top straps, we reinstall the front bottom strap. Again, make sure the rubber strips are aligned on the metal strap. Then the back strap goes back on. And before we let the jack down so we can reinstall the middle 2 straps, we tighten the front and back strap bolts. And since it started raining, we're going inside and have some lunch. An hour later, we let the jack down and pull it out of the way so we can reinstall the 2 middle tank straps. I will mention it again to make sure the rubber strips are gripped well on the metal straps. And since I couldn't find the torque specs on these nuts, do not over tighten them. I will keep searching for it, and we'll put it on the description and my pinned comment. Now we need to reconnect the filling fuel hose and the vent hose. Not having much room between the chassis and the tank, lining it up into the tank neck and then lining the worm screw clamps to tighten them make it a little bit challenging. It's one thing taking it off, but putting it back, it's a whole different story. So just be patient. Once the hoses are lined up with the neck, just push them in.
All right.
Now the ground wire is bolted back on to the tank with the 9/16 nut and bolt. Then we route the new hose going to the generator pump and strap it along the way, giving it some slack. Now we get to the generator pump, insert the clamp on the hose, and insert the hose into the pump. Then tighten the clamp. Check the hose to make sure it's not rubbing on anything sharp. If so, just use zip ties to divert and or some electrical tape to insulate it if necessary. After double checking everything, all is left is to prime the generator and start it. Let it run for at least 15 minutes on the load and check for any leaks. And that's about it. Thank you for watching. I hope this video helped you along the way. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask in the comments. See the description for links of tools and materials used in this video. And you all have a great day.